Welcome. This is Bridging the Gap Job Opportunities in Energy Services. My name is Cheryl Knight, and I'm very pleased to bring you recorded session number 3. Our topic is preparing for hiring fairs and meeting employers for energy services opportunities. This is being brought to you with the support of the Government of Alberta, working in partnership with the Government of Canada to provide employment services and programs. Our agenda. We have 5 topics we're going to cover today. The first is doing market research and developing your brand. Number 2 is preparing your resume and job applications. 3, presenting yourself to employers. 4, what to expect from the hiring process. And 5, resources to support your career search. Let's jump in. So doing market research and developing your brand is our first topic. And first, I'd like to cover the why of doing market research and developing your brand, and then we'll go into the what's and the how's. So why do market research and why develop your brand? The key reason is that it's very important in a competitive job market to arm yourself with knowledge to stand out with employers. That's knowledge of the job market, of the employers in the sector, and an understanding of the sector. But it's also knowledge of yourself. So let's go into the what's and the how's. Market research. It is a really important and effective tool that you can use to differentiate yourself. For the case of market research, it's learning about the energy services sector, its employment opportunities, and its qualifications. So that means using various tools such as company and sector websites to learn about the sector, its operational activities, locations, and hiring requirements, but also the terminology of the sector. In-person events are really important as well, such as attending webinars and career fairs. And finally, following industry associations and companies and signing up for any available newsletters. On the right, you see 3 links for energy services associations that I invite you to look more deeply into. Doing market research can differentiate you. We've heard this from employers. It increases your chances of getting hired. It will help you to find a career that aligns with your preferences. And lastly, market research can influence growth opportunities within a company once you're inside. Let's go into personal brand. Your personal brand is essentially a tool to communicate your value. So what is your value? Your value is made up of primarily 3, 4, 5 things: your experience, your knowledge, your skills and abilities, but also your values and your preferences. So employers are interested in the technical aspects of your brand, but also in elements of you that determines how well you're going to fit with them as an employer and as a sector. So your brand is about what you say in terms of conveying your value, but also how you say it and interact with others. Your application documents need to be tailored with your brand. So that means updating your resume and your cover letter, as well as your online presence. Once you understand what your brand is, the next step for you is to assess your fit, the fit of your brand with the sector or the company. So your fit or your brand is made up of your values and preferences, as well as the strengths, skills, and experience that you offer and their fit with the sector. So values and preferences have to do with factors such as your family situation, your ability to be flexible in terms of hours or location of work, or your priorities in terms of career progression with the fit of the sector and what it takes for you to be satisfied and successful in a career. To assess your values and preferences fit, consider working with a career practitioner or using an assessment tool. Next, assess the fit of your strengths, skills, and experience with those required of the sector. So that would include a fit with the work arrangements, the work environment, and the workplace culture, as well as the employment value proposition. And this is made up of total compensation, the role level, career development opportunities, the organizational values, and the location of work. So with that in mind, ask yourself the question, are you a fit for energy services? And the list on the right shows you some of the factors that you can assess to determine if you're a fit with the energy services sector. So it's a sector that has a variety of work, lots of different types of jobs. It involves jobs that require physical activity and working outdoors, and often working away from home for periods of time. It's a sector that values independence and collaboration and is a really great place for people that enjoy a fast-paced team environment. And lastly, with a fit with the sector, you can expect to see support for your career development and advancement in an environment where safety is rule number one. Once you've assessed your fit with the energy services sector and you find that there is a fit, tailor your application documents and online brand to the ways in which you fit with the sector. So that means analyzing job descriptions that you find online and framing your accomplishments in line with the requirements of the jobs or the sector. And that means adjusting your resume and your application documents, as well as developing or revising your LinkedIn profile. And please make sure that all your social media content is professional and matches with your application documents. Make sure that when you meet employers, either in an interview or at a hiring event, that you ask good questions. Ask them what they see in you as far as your strengths and how well it fits with employment in their company. Ask them what more you can do to qualify for a role in your company, in their company. And then also ask them how to stay in touch with them during the hiring process. Now we'll go into more information on how to prepare your resume and your application. And that means tailoring application documents and your interview stories, or how you present yourself and your brand. You all have all heard about applicant tracking systems. And because these are automated systems that screen your resume and application documents for keywords, it's really important that you tailor your application documents. As you can see from the image and the stats, many employers use applicant tracking systems. So that means using your research on job postings and the terminology in those those job postings to adjust your application forms and resumes accordingly. Use the STAR technique to highlight your accomplishments. This is a technique to present your technical skills that shows what you can do as well as your soft skills to show how you can deliver your skills. So your accomplishments. Employers are very much interested in both your soft skills as well as your technical skills. And they want to see both highlighted in your resumes and your cover letters and your in-person interactions with them. The STAR technique has been referred to as a prove it method that allows you to demonstrate how you've responded in specific situations. So you'll want to write accomplishment statements, prove it statements in your resume. As well, use accomplishment statements as examples in interviews. So the STAR technique involves describing a situation that you faced and what the problem was, explaining the task, what you needed to do, why you needed to do it, and the challenges you faced, describing the actions you took, and lastly, what were your accomplishments, or the R? What was the result that you achieved? So explaining what happened as a result of your efforts. And you can see that there's a link there from Ellis that provides you more information on situation, task, action, and result, or the STAR technique to highlight your accomplishments. Here's some additional tips for the STAR technique. Use job postings to identify the technical skills and soft skills that are needed by an employer. Use the STAR technique in your resume and interview to provide examples of skills you have demonstrated. Include skills and certifications that you have and that are required by energy services employers. And you can learn about these in recorded session number 1. Choose positive examples with positive outcomes. Start accomplishment statements with action verbs. I planned, I improved, I collaborated, I led, I analyzed. Incorporate your knowledge of the sector, including common industry terminology. So here's an example of the STAR technique. I improved safety in the warehouse, the situation, and the task by recognizing an equipment of operation risk and gained agreement of my colleagues, the action, to implement a new and safer procedure, the result. Presenting yourself to employers. I'm covering 3 elements. Demonstrate your knowledge of energy services culture and skill requirements when you present yourself to employers. And if you've attended recorded session number 1, you learned more about energy services culture and skill requirements. Present your fit using your personal brand that we've already discussed. And thirdly, ask good questions. Let's dive a little deeper into that. You can also use the STAR technique to present your fit with energy services culture. So 3 elements of the energy services culture are the safety culture, the respectful work environment, and continuous improvement. And remember, use your knowledge of the situation, the task, actions, and results to provide good examples using the STAR technique that show that you understand the safety culture, policies and practices, and that you have the abilities to speak up with confidence. Show that you understand what it means to work in a respectful work environment, and that it means utilizing interpersonal skills to manage interactions with peers and managers in a diverse work environment, and that you can openly communicate as is required for living and working together in a living environment for an extended period. And lastly, show that you know what it means to work in an environment that has a continuous improvement culture by showing that you've got the ability to ask questions, listen, and respond to feedback. What can you expect from the hiring process? Here are some typical next steps following hiring events and how you might be able to prepare for them ahead of time. So, regarding applications and timelines, you may need to submit an application after a hiring event using the company website, even if you've handed them a resume. You should expect to hear from companies that are interested in you within 1 to 2 weeks. If you don't hear, it's quite likely you are not seen as a fit with the job requirements and work environment. So in that case, it would be a good idea to revisit doing market research, assessing your brand, and evaluating your fit with the work environment. With respect to pre-employment requirements, you should obtain a driver's abstract, as many employers will be looking for a clean driver's abstract as an important follow-up step to be ready for employment. In all likelihood, the costs are your responsibility. Companies may require an orientation and pre-employment training, and this may also be at your expense in terms of any cost to get there and the time it takes to complete these requirements. However, pre-employment costs of drug, alcohol, and fitness testing are generally paid for by companies. Once you're hired, you may need your own credit card in your name to pay for out-of-pocket living costs before these are reimbursed to you. And finally, throughout the hiring process from beginning to end, don't be afraid to ask questions. For example, make sure you understand the steps for a particular employer in the hiring process, because they can be different from company to company. And ask them, what would the first few days of the job look like for new hires, and what can you do to prepare? So going to the resource section of our webinar, let's look at where you can look to find out more about who's actually doing hiring. So of course, you can attend hiring events and conduct job searches on sites such as Indeed and using LinkedIn and checking out job boards. I've offered 3 resources that have job boards where you can look to see if there are specific opportunities that are a fit for you in energy services. Additional resources. Here are 3 webinars that you might want to look at and listen to: making the most of connections with employers, connecting with employers, digging deeper into your personal brand, and overcoming energy sector bias and potential ageism. There is a list of agencies that can help you through Alberta government website. As well, through the Alberta government is the ALICE tool with resources that can help you with your career search and additional tools and resources. Next steps. I would very much like you to take the job seeker survey now, if you haven't already have done so. So please take your cameras out and copy the QR code, or go to careersandenergy.ca, then go to the news section to find out more about the Bridging the Gap program and use the link to take the survey there. The reason the job seeker survey is really important is that we aggregate data on the talent pool, including you, and share it with employers. And that enables us to make better matches between Alberta's talent pool and energy services employers that are going to attend hiring events. So we hope that you'll take the survey and sign up for additional notifications on upcoming hiring events. With that, I'm concluding Job Seekers Information Series webinar number 3, Preparing for Hiring Fairs. Number 1 and number 2 are described on this slide, and I hope you attend them. Number 1 gives you a foundation about the energy services sector, its jobs, qualifications, and work environment. And number 2 helps you to make the most of your energy services career. And with that, I would like to thank you for participating in this webinar, and we hope to see you at an upcoming hiring event.